What makes a man go from a regular kid in Brooklyn to the most feared gangster in America? A ruthless crime boss who ran Chicago with an iron fist and became the stuff of legends. Al Capone wasn't just a name. It was a symbol of power, violence, and ambition. But behind the tough guy image, there was more to Capone than met the eye. From charity work to bloody showdowns, his story has everything: ambition, violence, and a rise and fall that would change history. So how did he get to the top? And what led to his eventual downfall? This is the untold story of Al Capone, the man who became the king of crime until the law came knocking. Al Capone wasn't born into a life of luxury. In fact, his beginnings were far from glamorous. Born in the tough streets of Brooklyn, New York, on January 17, 1899, Al was just another kid in a family of Italian immigrants struggling to make a living. His father, Gabriel, worked as a barber, while his mother, Teresa, took care of the home. The Capone family didn't have much, but they had each other, and that meant something in a neighborhood where survival was tough. Growing up in Brooklyn wasn't easy. The streets were rough, and Al quickly learned that in order to survive, you had to be tough. But it wasn't just about physical strength, it was about smart moves, knowing the right people, and avoiding the wrong ones. Al's world was full of crime, and it wasn't long before he became a part of it. By the time he was 14, Al dropped out of school. He wasn't interested in textbooks, but he was very interested in the streets. It was here, in the gritty heart of Brooklyn, that he began making connections with some of the city's toughest street gangs. The 5 Points Gang in Manhattan, a notorious group led by Johnny Torrio, was one of the first gangs to give him a taste of what life in the underworld was really like. But Al wasn't just any thug. He had something that set him apart: a sharp mind and a natural ability to climb the ranks. In a world where street smarts meant everything, Capone wasn't just surviving, he was learning, building, and moving his way up the criminal ladder. And it wasn't just about petty thefts or street brawls anymore. This was the world of organized crime, a world where loyalty, power, and fear were everything. It was around this time, in a bar fight with a rival gang member, that Al would get a scar that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The slash across his face earned him the nickname Scarface, a name he never liked. But whether he liked it or not, it stuck, and the nickname became part of his legend. The years were tough, and Al wasn't looking for an easy way out. He was looking for power, and what better place to find that than in the criminal underworld? But what Capone didn't know at the time was that this was just the beginning of a journey that would lead him to become the most feared man in America. In 1920, something massive happened that would change everything for Al Capone: prohibition. With alcohol suddenly illegal in the United States, a new market opened up, one that was begging for someone to control it. And that someone? Well, Al Capone was already on his way to filling those shoes. But Capone wasn't going to just wait around. Johnny Torrio, the leader of the Chicago outfit, a powerful crime syndicate, saw potential in Al and invited him to the Windy City to join in on the bootlegging business. This wasn't just any criminal operation, it was big money, big risk, and big rewards. For Capone, it was a chance to climb even higher. When Capone arrived in Chicago, the city was already a battlefield. Gang violence was rampant, and several factions were fighting for control of the booze trade. But Capone wasn't afraid. In fact, he thrived in the chaos. He quickly earned the respect of his new colleagues, Torrio's right-hand men, including some of Chicago's most feared gangsters. In the early days, Capone learned the ins and outs of running a criminal empire. He was involved in everything from bootlegging alcohol to gambling, and even running illegal gambling dens. But Capone was different from others in the game. He didn't just rely on violence and intimidation. He had a charm about him. He knew how to make connections and keep them loyal. But make no mistake, if someone crossed him, they wouldn't live to regret it. By 1925, Capone's life would take another dramatic turn. Torrio, having been shot in a rival gang attack, handed over the reins of the outfit to Capone. With Torrio's blessing, Al became the king of Chicago's underworld, and that's when the real power started to shift. In no time, Capone took control of nearly every major part of Chicago's illicit industries. Speakeasies were everywhere, and Capone ran most of them. He had a cut of everything: alcohol, gambling, prostitution. He was everywhere, always watching, always calculating. His rise was swift, but it wasn't without its challenges. Other gangs, especially those led by people like Bugs,